Have you ever wondered on how to make some delicious tasting caramelized onions? Well, today I'm going to show you how to do just that. They are easy to make, however, it does take a little bit of time. This is how it is, but I'm going to show you a few tricks that will make this process a little quicker. So before we get going today, be sure to get all the ingredients as well if you want to cook along with me. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future content. And let's get started. Now, personally, I go through a lot of onions. I use them all the time. I use them for a lot of recipes, and they are one of the most common vegetables to use in the kitchen. What I'm gonna do is we're going to cut off the top, cut off the bottom, cut in half. And by doing this, where you do one step, you finish everything, and then you take that after you finish it, you peel them, and then you slice them. It helps make everything a little more organized. It also helps if you have a little trash can here, your mise en place or your stuff that you're going to be using, and then a tray or a bowl, a plate, whatever, to set them on. And you know, you're always working like one direction. Since I'm a righty, I work this way. If I was a lefty, I'd work the other way. You can use a paring knife too to help you peel these, or you can use your fingers. It doesn't really matter. Whatever helps, whatever works faster. Now that we've done all the prep, now we're gonna slice. So it is important when you're cutting these. Personally, I never slice the onions across the grain like this to make julienne onions or sliced onions. You can if you want. I don't. But what we are going to be doing is we're going to be doing them along the grain, not against. And when you're making caramelized onions, this is great knife practice. So what you want to do is you want to grip the knife as always. You want to find the balance point, which is right around the center here with my middle finger. I am then going to pinch. Again, I'm going to use the claw grip. You never want to leave your fingers straight because you can cut them. If you curl them, then the knife will more than likely not cut you. It can still happen. The thinner that you slice them, the faster they'll cook. The thicker you slice them, the longer they'll take to cook. So if you want this to cook quicker, you need to cut them thinner. Firstly, we're going to slice these lengthways, just like this. Now, once you get to the end of the onion, this is a little wobbly and you can cut yourself, so it's a good idea to push that over and to keep slicing. And once you have the first onion done, or first half, you just keep repeating the process until you're finished. And then if you have a tray, it's easy. You can just put the tray under the cutting board like this, put them under the tray or in the pan. After you have all your onions nice and sliced, we're going to get our pot out. With a wide base, if you have a Dutch oven, that works as well. A pan that has a thick bottom, this is what you want. Now, how are we going to cook these caramelized onions? Well, there's a few ways. You have a few options. In the north, in England and America and France and many other countries, we use a lot of butter, and normally we caramelize them with butter. Although I would recommend using the clarified butter, which, by the way, I did make a video on not that long ago, and I'll leave the link down below if you want to check that video out. So we're going to be using some clarified butter, a few sprigs of fresh thyme. Thyme adds a lot of fragrance and aromatics to the onions. And then we're going to be deglazing it a little later on with some white wine. The way that they make caramelized onions here in Spain is with oil, specifically olive oil, and a lot of olive oil. When I was at Hotel Arts here, we pretty much fried the onions instead of sauteing them. Get the pan on the stove. Once it comes up to temp, we're going to add the butter to the pan. After the butter melts, I'm going to add the sprig of thyme, but be careful because it can spit at you. We're going to add a portion of the onions. We're not going to add everything now, because if we do, you're not going to be sauteing them and we're going to be boiling them, and we don't want that. If you're wondering why there's no audio while this is happening, it's because I forgot to turn on my audio and I was recording without audio, so it happens. Anyway, I caught the problem, so now you get to hear it. As you can tell, the onions are starting to turn translucent, and you can see all the water that they're releasing. This is good. After about 2 minutes, the water has evaporated, so we can start adding the rest of the onions. Now, what we're trying to do right now is to caramelize the onions. We're trying to extract all the water in the onions, and one way I'm doing that is by cooking them. The other way is by adding salt. The salt will also help season it. Now, you want to keep cooking these on high heat and keep stirring them, because if not, you can run the risk of burning them. Also, if you need to add a little more fat, you can add some more butter or oil to the pan. Now, after you notice that they've started to reduce, they've started to lose their moisture, and they're starting to look a little darker, you can drop the temperature down to medium or even low to get that caramelized onion that you want. The slower you cook these, the more flavorful they'll be, but it does take a lot of time. So a cheat is to cook them at a little bit of a higher temperature and to keep an eye on them moving the pan around. And it is a good idea to use a wooden spoon or something else, a spatula, to scrape the bottom of the pan just so they don't burn and so it doesn't stick. So if the bottom of your pan is like heavily dented and scratched, it may not be a good idea to use a pan like that. Now, after about an hour of cooking, maybe even a little more depending on how quickly your stovetop cooks and how high you had the temperature, you should have a nice caramelized color like I have here. If it's a little lighter, that's okay, just keep cooking a little longer. And if it's a little darker, well, then it's even better, unless you burned it, which then it's not good. Now, after all this cooking, you can see how much they've reduced. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna drain off a little bit of the butter because we have a lot, and then we're gonna deglaze the pan. If you have too much butter or oil in the pan and you add another liquid like wine or anything to this, you can end up with hurting yourself. So I suggest to reduce the amount of fat that's in the pan first before you do it. What's deglazing? Deglazing is when you take another liquid such as wine, stock, even vinegar as well, you add to the pan that you've been cooking in, and you want to take all the fond, all that stuff that's stuck to the bottom of it, you want to take it with you. You don't want to get rid of it. So you can either scrape it or add some liquid to it, and then it will release. You want to turn up the temperature so you evaporate the alcohol. Reduce it until you don't see any liquid anymore. Now we're going to be straining these. You want a bowl or a pan or pot, whatever you have, a colander, a sieve, whatever you have as well. And we're going to be removing the excess fat that's in the pan because we don't want all the butter and everything that's in here. Oh my goodness, these smell so good. You can use white wine, you can use vinegar, you can use stock, you can just use water as well. The reason why I add white wine, one, it's pretty common to deglaze pans with wine, white wine in the kitchen. It adds a lot of flavor depending on the wine that you use. And if you want to add more of a sourness to it, you can add some balsamic vinegar or some red wine vinegar to this. It's not an issue. The balsamic vinegar will make the onions turn very dark. So if you want that super, super dark color, that can help. Or if you cook them for another hour or two on the stove at a very low temperature so they don't burn, that is also another option to get them super dark. Other than that, if you can get them to the color that we have them today, this took about an hour and almost an hour and a half at medium to high heat with about 2 kilos of onions, with me constantly stirring them so they wouldn't burn. And it is a bit of a pain to stand there and do this continuously, although this is a quicker method. If you want to take your time and you want to just leave them on the stovetop for like 2 hours, 3 hours, then I would suggest to turn it on low heat and still keep an eye on them, but you don't have to constantly move them. Because if you don't, at a higher heat, they'll stick to the pan, and then all that fond will start to burn, and then you will get a lot of characters and aromas that you don't want. Also remember, when adding the thyme, if you can actually find it at the end, the stems, remove them, especially the woody ones. They're not fun to bite into. And if you need some ideas on what to use with caramelized onions, they go very well with meat, with fish, burgers, hot dogs, salmon, halibut, whatever you want. Also, if you want to make a Spanish tortilla with caramelized onions, you already did half the work. Now you just need to cook the potatoes, add the eggs, and you have a caramelized tortilla. Very tasty. I have a video on that, by the way. I have a couple of them. One thing I forgot to mention, since you already made a decent amount of caramelized onions, right now would be a good time to portion them into different containers and to even freeze half of it if you're not going to use it all at once. It'll stay in the fridge for several days. 3 to be okay, it'll stay in the fridge for about a week. But if you keep it in the freezer, you can freeze it for a very long time and then just take it out when you need it. Hopefully all of you enjoyed this video. I hope that I made it easy to follow and that it's clear enough so you don't have too many questions on how to make it at home. But if you do have any questions, write down below and I'll try to answer the best I can if I have the time. And if you did happen to enjoy this video, then be sure to give it a like and a share. But most importantly, if you are not subscribed yet, then please do subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so you don't miss out on any future content. Thank you for watching, everyone, and let me know your results down below if you try this at home. Until next time, take care. Be sure to check out this next video here, and I'll see you guys again very soon.